I have titled my talk Mahavakyam in Tirumantiram. Before I accepted to speak on this occasion, I did check with Dr. Srinivasan whether I should speak in English or in Tamil. And he said either is okay, but by English you will probably reach more people. So I decided to speak in English. The topic for today's talk is Mahavakyam in Tirumantiram. There are two words in this title, Mahavakyam and Tirumantiram. Before we go deeper into the subject, I think it will be appropriate to get a basic understanding of these two words. By Mahavakyam, what we mean is a cryptic sentence, very brief in size and length, but very profound in meaning. How brief? Usually not more than 3-4 words. That is probably the reason why Thirumoolar in his Thirumandiram decided to deal with this subject under the title Muppadam. Padam actually meaning words, so Muppadam meaning 3 words. And how profound? So profound that the comprehensive understanding of the Mahavakya or through Mahavakya Vichara, you can get aparoksha jnana, and jnana leads to kaivalya. That is probably why Shankara in his Dakshinamurti Stotram says, Yasyaiva sphuranam sadatmakamasat kalparthakam bhasate Sakshat tatvamasiti veda vachasa yo bodhayat yashritan yat sakshat karanat bhavet na punaravrittir bhavambho nidhau tasmai shri gurumurtaye namayidam shri dakshinamurtaye. In this stotram, Shankara says that Sri Dakshinamurti imparts to those that have surrendered to him direct enlightenment through the Mahavakya Tattvamasi, and after the direct experience of which there is no returning to the ocean of samsara. You may then ask, how many Mahavakyas are there? There are many in the Vedas strewn all over, but 4 of them are most popular. Aitareya Upanishad of Rigveda, Prajnanam Brahma, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Yajurveda, Aham Brahmasmi, Chandogya Upanishad from Samaveda, Tattvamasi, and Mandukya Upanishad, Atharva Veda, Ayamatma Brahma. All of them, in a sense, expounds the same ultimate truths of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam, or the identity of the individual soul with the eternal, all-pervading, supreme Brahman. Now that we have got an outline of what Mahavakya is, let's look at Tirumantiram. Tirumantiram, as all of you know, is the 10th Tirumurai out of the 12 foundational sacred literature of Shaivism in Tamil Nadu, which goes by the name Panniru Thirumuraigal. This was authored by Saint Thirumoolar, who is one of the 63 Nayanmas and also the foremost amongst the 18 Siddhars. They are popularly known as Padinan Siddhargal. Thirumoolar is supposed to have lived around 4th to 6th century BC, 6th century AD. That means he lived earlier to the Shamaya Kuravargal, that is Appar Sundarar Manikavachakar and Tirunavakarasar and Tiruñana Sambandar, and also the 4 Santana Kuravargal. The story of Thirumoolar is so well known that I wouldn't like to elaborate it again here for want of time. But I would like to highlight that he was a Shiva yogi who mastered Vedas and Agamas under Nandiyam Peruman in Kailasam according to his own statement in Tirumantiram. And during his sojourn in South India, he saw a herd of cows grieving over the dead body of their keeper, Moolan. And out of extreme compassion, he entered the body of Moolan through Parakaya Pravesham, which is one of the siddhis that he had mastered. And after discharging his duty, which is the duty of the cowherd, he could not locate his body. And taking it as God's will, he retired to a banyan tree and sat in contemplation and produced this sublime work of Tirumantiram consisting of 3,000 verses. There's something that you should note from his own life, and that is, if an ordinary man comes back and finds that his body is lost, he couldn't find it in the place where he left it. Did he throw a tantrum? Did he throw up his hands and then say, "What shall I do now? Oh my God, my body is gone. What's going to be my future?" That would be the wailing and the mourning of an ordinary person. But that Shiva yogi was steeped in Vedanta. So, in line with the Vedic teaching that he must have received, Naham dehaha name dehaha. I am not the body, nor the body is mine, was the realization that he must have grown with. So it didn't matter to him that he lost his body. He simply took it as divine will and went and produced the 3,000 verses. That is Tattvamasi in action for you. Thirumoolar himself declares the purpose of his life in one of his Tirumantiram. He says, Shilanga Vedattai Sheppavandene. And in another Tirumantiram he says, Shindai Shaid Agamam Sheppalutrene, declaring that the purpose for which he was created was to produce the essence of Vedas and Agamas in good Tamil. Ennai nandraha iraivan padaithanan, Tannai nandraha Tamil seyyumare. Tannai nandraha, better to note that he actually thought by saying the verses of Vedanta in Tamil, he was actually describing the Lord Supreme. So the purpose to expound the essence of Vedas and Agamas was his life's goal. No wonder he named his work as Mandiram, because the hymns of the Vedas are known by the word mantram, You say Rig Mantram, Yajurveda Mantram, Samaveda Mantram. It goes by the name Mantram. So he declared that his work will be called Mandiram. And it gave the name of the chapters as Tandiram, because Agams have another name by name Tantram. You say Karana Tantram, Kamika Tantram, like that. So he declared that the chapters will be called Tandiram. Now let us look at how Tirumantiram deals with the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. Thirumoolar introduces the Mahavakyam with a slightly different order of words. Instead of calling it Tat Tvam Asi, he calls it Tvam Tat Asi. It doesn't make a difference in Sanskrit as to how you put these words, because the order doesn't matter in Sanskrit. The meaning is the same. Whether you say thou art that, Tvam Tat Asi, or Tat Tvam Asi, the meaning doesn't change. But let's see what Tirumantiram says in the introduction of Tattvamasi. Uyirai Paranai Uyar Shivan Tannai Ayarvatrari Tondattashi Adanal Sayalatru Arivahiyum Chandradanga Ayarvatra Vedanta Siddhantamame. By Uyirai, he means the individual soul, Jivatma. By Paranai, he means the Brahman that is mentioned in the Vedanta. Uyirai Paranai Uyar Shivantannai. In Siddhanta, the Nirguna Brahma that's usually mentioned in the Vedanta is actually Shivan. So, Uyar Shivantannai Ayarvatra Ari. You must try to understand these concepts. How do you do that? Tvandattashi Adanal. Through the Mahavakyam, Tvam Tat Ashi. So, at the end he says, this is what Vedanta is, and that is what Siddhanta is. Both are the same. Freely translated, this verse says, realize without delusion the true meaning of Jivan and Shivan. Discern the real substance of Tvam Tat Asi. Abandon your actions. Assume the path of knowledge. Abide under the Lord's feet. That is Vedanta, and that is also Siddhanta. It's interesting to note that Thirumoolar has handled Tattvamasi as Tvam Tat Asi. Why would he do this? Is a question that one may contemplate on. Thirumoolar may have thought that when explaining a profound concept, it is better to start with a known substance and then move on to more difficult substances. When the teacher addresses the disciple, starting with the word you, his immediate reaction would be, I know all about that word. You is what is standing, this body standing before you is you. He has no confusion about that, you see. That is a very common yukti that is handled in teaching a new subject. And Thirumoolar has simply handled it that way, is my opinion. Supposing he starts with Tat Tvamasi and starts with the word Tat, which actually means that, immediately stop, wait, what is that? It seems to would be the likely reaction from the student, because he doesn't know that. So he will say, first explain to me that, and then we will go on to the next. So it is a usual yukti or a technique that is used by Thirumoolar to make Tattvamasi simpler for his student to understand, even though the Tvam also requires a lot of explanation later on, but the simple student is not likely to comprehend that right in the beginning. Before we go on to the subject in greater depth, it is necessary for us to understand an important concept in Siddhanta, namely the concept of Pati, Pashu, Pasham. This was mentioned in the morning by Mr. Ramanathan, Honorable Ramanathan Judge also, because this is central to the understanding of Shaiva Siddhanta. In simple terms, Pati represents the Supreme Lord Shiva. Pashu denotes all living beings. Pashu in this context doesn't mean the cow that gives you milk. Pashu is all living being. Pasham is bondage. It's the bondage that binds all living beings to this world. Pasham literally means rope. It's actually the rope, figuratively, that binds you to this world. This is somewhat equivalent to the Jiva Jagadishvara triad concept in Vedanta. All these three, the three means Pati, Pashu, Pasham, they go by the collective name, by name Mupporul in Tamil. Mupporul is three substances. And they are all Anadi. According to Thirumoolar, all the three are Anadi, without a beginning. Padi, Pashu, Pasham, Yanappahar, Mundril, Padiyinai pol, Pashu, Pasham, Anadi. Padiyinai Shendru Anuha, Pashu, Pasham, Padi Anuhil, Pashu, Pasham, Nillave. Is a very oft quoted verse from Tirumantiram, which clearly declares that all three substances, Pati, Pashu, Pasham, they are Anadi. That means they had no beginning. In this, Pati and Pashu are both Chit substances. Chit means substances endowed with intelligence. Whereas Pasham is inert, is Jada. This also is declared by one Tirumantiram very clearly. Arivu arivendra arivum anadi, arivukku arivam padiyum anadi, arivinai kattiya pasham anadi, arivu padiyil pirapparum thane. Actually, it's a simple Tirumantiram. You simply substitute arivu with Jivatma. Because Jivatma is endowed with intelligence, so he uses the word arivu to denote Jivatma. Arivu arivu endra arivum anadi. Chit swarupamana Jivatma is also anadi. Arivukku arivu. What is that arivukku arivu? Arivukku arivu, by that he actually means Pati. The Pati, which is arivukku arivu, that is also Anadi. Arivanai kattiya pasham Anadi. Ariva means Jivatma. The one that binds the Jivatma is also Anadi. Arivu padiyil pirapparupum thane. When this Jivatma understands and merges with Pati, it will completely get away from the cycle of birth and death. That is what this verse says. Pasham, we talked about Pati, we talked about Pashu. What is Pasham? Pasham arises out of threefold impurities, according to Thirumoolar. And these impurities are called malam. And these three malams are Anava malam, Kanma malam, and Maya malam. Anava malam consists of the false notion of the Jivatma, considering itself finite and atomic, confined to the body with limited knowledge and power. It is not the commonly used word in regular parlance, Anavam, meaning Ahangaram. In Tamil, Anavam is sometimes used to denote Ahangaram. That is not this Anavam. This Anavam is Anoho Bhavaha, that it considers itself limited in knowledge, limited in power, limited in Shakti, and that is that Anavam. Karmamala is produced by the deeds of the soul, both good and bad. Mayamala is the material cause of this world and connects the jiva with the pleasures and pains of worldly experience. And getting rid of these three malas enables the living beings to transcend their pashutva and merge with the Lord. Pashu palakodi beraman mudalai பசுக்களை கட்டிய பாசம் மூன்றுண்டு. பசுத்தன்மை நீக்கி அப்பாசம் அறுத்தால் பசுக்கள் தலைவனை பற்றி விடாவே. If you get rid of this pasha, Thirumoolar says, Pashukal, the living beings, தலைவனை பற்றி, getting hold of pati, vidave, you will not leave those feet of the Lord once you catch hold. So, Tirumantiram declares that the goal of every Jivatma should be what? The goal of every Jivatma should be to become one with Shiva. How else can you say Advaita in more simple terms? He simply declares that every Jivatma, every living being has got one goal in life, and that goal in life is to merge with Shiva. If the Jivatma realizes its true nature after removal of avidya, it becomes co-pervasive with Shiva and shares his glory, just as a copper vessel that is covered with kalmasha, the impurity, the deposit that develops, and regains its shine after removal of these impurities by using tamarind, lemon, or various chemicals and all that. You clean it up, it shines as if it's a new copper vessel. The goal of Jivatma is declared by Thirumoolar in this following verse. Shivan enna verillai. I don't think you can put Advaita in simpler terms than this. Shivan enna verillai. Shivanare arihilar. The Jivatma, the common Jivatma, he doesn't know that he is Shiva. That is the whole problem. Shivanare arindapin. Shivanai ingittiruppare. I don't have to explain this. This verse succinctly puts the whole essence of Vedanta in 4 simple lines. Important thing to note, Shivanare arindapin, Shivanai ingittiruppare. Once you understand comprehensively your true nature, and the true nature is Shiva himself, then you will be Shiva. Compare this with what Taittiriya Upanishad says, Brahmavida apnoti param. Exactly the same concept is said by Thirumoolar in this verse. Let us now get back to a little bit of Chandogya Upanishad, where the original Tattvamasi is said. In the 6th chapter of Chandogya, there's a beautiful dialogue. Many of you will be aware of this, but pardon me if it is a repetition. In the 6th chapter, there is a beautiful dialogue between sage Uddalaka and his own son turned disciple, Shvetaketu. Having been sent to Gurukulam at the age of 12, Shvetaketu returned at the age of 24, arrogant and conceited with the knowledge of the Vedas that he had learned. His father queried the son whether he was taught that knowledge by which the unknown becomes known, unheard becomes heard, and the ununderstood becomes understood. Ashrutam shrutam bhavati, amatam matam bhavati, avijñātam vijñātam bhavati. This is the question that he asks. And when Shvetaketu replied that he has not heard anything like this, how can there be a knowledge by which what is not heard can be heard? All this looks mysterious to me, is what he said. Then the father explains the fundamental Vedantic truth of Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam through the Mahavakyam Tattvamasi. Tattvamasi literally is translated as that thou art. You would have seen it in so many literatures. Or you are that. Here the word tat means that, which is a third person singular pronoun used to indicate a thing or a person not in immediate vicinity. Tvam means you, which is a second person singular pronoun used to address the one standing before you. Asi is a verb meaning are. In Sanskrit, it also indicates present tense in the second person singular. So the whole sentence is translated literally as you are that. In Vedanta, that is interpreted as Brahman. And Tvam is interpreted as Jiva, or the individual Atma. And Asi is the equating verb, true in all tenses, otherwise indicating eternal identity. Now let's look at the Tirumandira interpretation. Tirumantiram explains the general concept of Chandogya Mahavakya in this verse. Vedanta Tumpadam Mevum Pashuvenba Nadanta Pasham Vedanindra Nanpadi Podanta Tarpadam Poyiranda Aikyam Sadharanam Sayujyam Ame. This verse explains that the Tvam in Vedanta indicates the individual soul or Pashu of Saivism. Pati by nature is devoid of pasha of all three kinds, anava, kanma and maya. The word tat denotes pati as known through bodhanta. Pati is pure by nature, while the individual soul becomes pure through spiritual sadhanas. Pati and the purified pashu merge together, which is called Shiva Sayujyam. This oneness is denoted by the verb ashi in the Upanishadic Mahavakya. We notice here also that Thirumoolar changes the order of words, putting Tvam first and Tat after Tvam. We already saw that Tat is Pati or Shiva, which is Chit Swarupa, all-pervasive, eternal, self-luminous, full of bliss and grace, support of the entire universe, and inherently free from all impurities. Vayaviya Samhita says, Anadimala Samshlesha Pragabhavate Swabhavataha Atyanta Parishuddha Atma Ityataha Ayam Shiva Uchyate. There is no association with impurity of any kind right through as far as Pati is concerned. Thirumoolar says that the individual, that is the Tvam Padam, identifies itself with the body first and gradually after spiritual inquiry reaches the state of Turiya where he realizes that he is different from the body-mind complex. The Tirumantiram that says this, Unnai ariyadu udalai mun naan endrai, உன்னை அறிந்து துரியத் துறநின்றாய் தன்னை அறிந்தும் பிறவி தணவாதால் அன்ன வியாத்தன் அமலன் என்று அறிதியே. உன்னை அறியாது உடலை முன் நான் என்றாய். When you don't know your true nature, you think you are your body. உன்னை அறிந்து துரியத்து உறநின்றாய். The moment you know your true nature, you go to Turiyam. In the formative period of spiritual evolution, the individual considers himself as the body. There is nothing other than the physical body. But after self-inquiry, he starts to realize his own intrinsic nature and enters the state of Turiya. That by itself will not bring freedom from birth. Apart from realizing oneself, he must also realize his master, Shiva, and then only he will transcend the cycle of transmigration. போதம் தனை உன்னி பூதாதி பேதமும் ஓதும் கருவி 90 ஓராறு பேதமும் நாதாந்தம் பெற்றியும் கைவிட்டு வேதம் சொல் தொம்பதம் ஆகுதல் மெய்மையே. This verse actually gives a description of what Tvampadam means. When you give up all the 96 evolutes and understand your true nature, and that is Tvam. Once we analyze the Tvam and Tat word and understand what they denote, we may be under the impression that they are two different things. We have understood Tvam separately, we have understood Tat separately. What could be the connection between the two? The Asi word does the job of establishing that they are in really identical. Let's see the verse that provides clarification as to how this is achieved. தற்பதம் என்றும் துவம்பதம் தான் என்றும் நிற்பது அசியத்துள் நேரிழையாழ்பதம் சொற்பதத்தாலும் தொடரவண்ணாச்சிவன் கற்பனை இன்றி கலந்து நின்றானே. Shiva is denoted by the word Tat and Jiva is denoted by the word Tvam. Jiva becomes one with Shiva by the grace of Shakti, which is indicated by the term Asi. Without her help, it is not possible for Jiva to progress toward the goal of oneness with Shiva. Thirumoolar sees the Asi word in a wholly new dimension. For this interpretation, Thirumoolar gives credit to his preceptor Nandi, as seen in the following verse. Tompadam tarpadam tondrum asipadam நம்பிய சிவன் பரசிவனாய் நிற்கும் அம்பதம் மேலை சொரூபமா வாக்கியம். மா வாக்கியம் here actually means Mahavakyas. He uses the word Mahavakyas here. செம்பருள் ஆண்டருள் சீர்நந்திதானே. Jiva becomes Shiva. This becoming is carried out by the term Ashi, though the word literally means are. If Jiva reposes full faith in this Mahavakya, he can attain the status of Parashivan. The inner meaning of Ashipadam, representing the form of Shakti, was explained to me by my divine preceptor Nandiyam Perumal. That is what Thirumoolar says. After receiving the teaching from Uddalaka, we now go back to Chandogya Upanishad. His son and disciple Shvetaketu, having imbibed the import of the Mahavakyam, Tattvamasi, responds with the statement, Aham Brahmasmi. This actually is the Shishya's response to the Guru. And Tirumantiram explains this in the following verse. Ni adu aanai yananindra perurai. Perurai is again Mahavakyam. Another word that he uses for Mahavakyam is perurai. ஆயது நான் ஆனேன் என்னச் சமைத்து சேய சிவமாக்கும் ஷீர்நந்தி பேரருள் அற ஆயதுவாய் ஆனந்தானந்திதாமே. To the instruction of the Guru, you are that, after contemplating on its meaning deeply, the disciple responds with the words, I have become that. What gives him the status of Shiva is the compassionate grace from the Lord himself. He gets boundless happiness on account of that, says this verse. See, with that I would like to conclude this talk, except wanting to highlight that Tirumantiram, very beautifully, in his own way, Thirumoolar has explained the essence of the Mahavakyam in Tirumantiram in about 10 to 12 verses. I've been able to just outline the way the Mahavakyam has been dealt with in Tirumantiram. In greater detail, a few years later, I brought out a book called Tondattashi. There's a booklet that I wrote, which explains this concept in greater detail. For any of you who may be interested, you may probably get more details from that book. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I wish you well.
I got the opportunity to listen to so many beautiful lectures today on Tamil Advaita. And in this particular session, it was very interesting. This session started with Dr. Sampath Kumar's explanation of the development of Tamil Advaita in the 20th century, beginning with Bharati and Ramana Maharishi. And he emphasized that how people in the 20th, Tamil Advaitins in the 20th century have influenced the Akhanda Bharatam as a civilizational concept. That is, they brought out the Upanishadic unity along with the linguistic variety. This is an emphasis that he made. And he used the word Bharatiya Arivu Parampare for the Indian philosophy as an experiential truth. And for the uninformed, if you are not very deep into Vedanta, we will immediately think that it is something that for experience, but the traditional people, the traditionalists will understand that what he means is the realization of the ultimate truth. So, and he brought out the difference in Ramana Maharishi's explanation of Advaita, Tamil Advaita as Atma Vicharam, and he said it is a unarvu, consciousness, which means self-realization, and I would call it as Ekameva Advitiyam, the Upanishadic verse. And there he says, Ramana Maharishi's this thing, his way of teaching is Atma Vicharam is a combination of the Jnana Marga and Karma Marga. For the uninformed, they may think that it is a synthesis, whereas in Advaita Vedanta, we do not accept Jnana Karma Samuchaya. We understand both are necessary, but we don't talk about Jnana Karma Samuchaya, and yet we see in Ramana Maharishi, he was able to show us a way as to how you need both to the higher realization, which was brought out very beautifully by Dr. Sampath Kumar. And he came to, and he was also emphasizing on satsangam as an important means to in gaining this Atma Vicharam. Next, when he was talking about Bharati, he quoted Jnanaratham. It is actually a novella, and I am very proud to say that I have translated that work, Jnanaratham, in English with my commentary from an Advaitic perspective, which Dr. Indra Parthsarthi had given his preface to that, his foreword to that, in which he says that the explanation given is more like a bhashyam. That was the way I approached Jnanaratham. Anyway, I could understand when he was talking about Jnanaratham as an example to understand Bharatiya's presentation of Advaita Vedanta, and there he very aptly brought out what is the crux in Jnanaratham. It is, the mind which is playing all its tricks on the protagonist and then bringing him down to earth in every literal sense. The mind is what plays all the foolery there and brings the person down to earth. And he also raised this question, was there any encounter between Bharati and Ramana Maharishi? And he also summed it up, saying what is important are the thought process of of these great minds, not whether they were physically meeting each other or not. Next, I come to Dr. Chandrasekhar's Surupanandaran Advaita Chindanaigal. He very beautifully brought out that Surupananda is an etymological name, and the Tattvarayar has written a Bharani on Surupananda, that is Mohavade Bharani on Surupananda, but he has written Agnavade Bharani also. It is, I mean, here he quoted so many verses from Surupa Saram, and Dr. Chandrasekhar mentioned that Surupa Saram was by Surupananda, but that is again debated between the scholars. They say that the work could have been by Tattvarayar, which I will be covering when I talk about the literature in Tamil Advaita. Tattvarayar's literature, Tattvarayar's works on Tamil Advaita. And he quoted so many verses to show how the Surupa Saram brings out the concepts of Advaita in it. And finally he says, a jnani, he does not care for praise or insult, nor does he bother to go, nor does he need to go on pilgrimages, because he has already attained what is to be attained. And next was Dr. Vinod Murali's talk on how the contribution of Adinams to the preservation of Tamil Advaita. He started with saying that the Advaita's vitality is through the transmission and continuity through different languages. That was a very significant remark that struck me, because you're talking about a philosophy remaining intact and the role of languages in it. And we have that in this encyclopedia of Advaita literature. One of the authors very clearly says that, the vernacular languages are being ignored when we are talking about Advaita literature. And that is one of the chapters they talk about, whether Kaivalya Namanitam was written in Sanskrit first, Shankukavi. And there, I always have a debate with Dr. Srinivasan, whether Shankukavi was wrote Kaivalya Namanitam first, or whether Tandavarayar wrote it first, which was the translation of which one. But still, what matters is that these texts are important. Texts that matter are available from one language into another. And another thing is, even Dr. Paneerselvam in the morning, he mentioned about Paramartha Darshanam as an Advaita text. Today, Dr. Vinod Murali also mentioned about Paramartha Darshanam as an Advaita text. When I started including Mu Arunachalam's this one, there he mentions Paramartha Darshanam by a Bhattanar, some Bhattanar. He doesn't give the first name of Bhattanar, and he says it is written from a Vaishnavite perspective, from a Vishishtadvaita perspective. So this was something, new information for me, who has all along been maintaining, like, look, we didn't have an original work in Vedanta, and the first Vedanta work, the original Vedanta work was Paramartha Darshanam, which was Vishishtadvaita Vedanta work. But today I have been proven wrong, and I have been enlightened by, look, we have a work, Paramartha Darshanam, which is an Advaita text, which is by a Bhattanar, and Professor Paneerselvam mentioned who that Bhattanar is. And coming back to Dr. Vinod Murali's talk, he was bringing out the differences between liberation as understood in Advaita Vedanta and in Shaiva Siddhanta, where in Advaita Vedanta it is realizing oneself as Brahman. In Shaiva Siddhanta, it is merging with the Jiva, merging with Shiva. Understanding Shiva and merging with Shiva. That means there is still that little distance to be maintained in Shaiva Siddhanta. That is a nuance to be understood. How much ever we try to draw, compare, these similarities and say that this is that. And sir, I will be coming back to that. And Thirumoolar's this one. And Dr. Vinod was able to show with example how the Adinams are been playing a very important role in preserving all these texts, manuscripts, commentaries, translations, and activities in taking the Advaita philosophy to the people. And as Dr. Pannirselvam explained, maintaining our local identity also. That is maintaining our Tamil cultural identity also. So, and he was saying that how the introduction by Adinams are equally important. He showed on one of the texts. Coming to Dr. Mahadevan, whom we listened to finally, on the Mahavakyas in Tirumantiram, he brought out the significance of why these Mahavakyas are so short. And he quoted it from Tirumantiram as Muppadam. They are so short, either 3 or 4 words. And these are short, no doubt, but they are profound in their meanings, and they are meant to give Paroksha Jnana, which would lead to moksha. And he was talking about Thirumoolar as a Shiva yogi who was steeped in Vedanta, who was able to bring out, who realized it and was also able to convey this to everybody as Naham Deha Name Deha. And what was the purpose of his life? He is saying as Vedam Cheppa Bandene, Agamam Chayalutrene, both. And his life's goal was to expound what was the wisdom of the Vedas and the Agamas. So the text is called Mantiram, Tirumantiram, the holy Mantiram, and the chapters are called Tantiram, where he is able to combine both. Now, he took up, the Chandogya Upanishad Tattvamasi as an example of the Mahavakya, and said that in Tirumantiram, Thirumoolar presents it as Tvam Tatu Asi. And he says both are the same. Yes, on the face of it, yes. If I translated it, it would be the same. But commentators have a different take on it. They say there is a purpose. Why? I'll tell you. Tatu Tvam Asi is from Chandogya Upanishad. Tvam Tatu Asi is from Paingala Upanishad. The Upanishads are different. So when the commentators talk about, they say, look, there is a purpose in putting them in the respective places. Tatatvam Asi is to bring the absolute who is so far away down to you to understand. Look, don't look at it as that far away, it is all here, you. And when you say Tvam Tatu Asi, I am just trying to help you. The Guru is trying to help the disciple. Don't be stagnating here. You are actually belonging there. You have to rise up. So this is in short, not to know the whole thing, but in short, this is the purpose of these two Mahavakyas, though they convey the same identity. But how they are interpreted by everybody, including Vishishtadvaita or Dvaita, there is going to be a difference. And Thirumoolar also has done that. He may say Vedanta and Siddhanta are the same, but he adds a clause, but. What is a but? He says, Pati Anugil Pasu Pasam Allave. That is only if that Pati decides and comes down to you, then this thing is gone, your bondage is gone. And you are no more a Jivatma. That is only the Brahman has to decide. In Advaita, what do we say? Unless I exercise my willpower, unless I exercise my choice to understand who I am, I cannot go up there. So there is a nuance there. And also,
according to Vedanta, there is no choice.
Let me just sum up. I'll sum up. I'll sum up and then.
Because choice will imply a chooser.
Wait. I'll just. Okay. So, and one more thing, in Shaiva Siddhanta, we are talking about the Jivatma merging with Shiva. In Vedanta, we say the Jivatma is none other than Paramatma. Just, ignore all the upadhis in the Jiva as well as the Paramatma. This is, but to understand this, we try in every manner, we try to cull, even from the Alvars, we try to cull out sentences which may be talking about Advaita. Because everything in the end is how should I understand Brahman and how far do I understand Brahman and to what extent can I own it, own that Brahman as myself, or just, be very clear that, look, Brahman is Brahman, I am myself, and I'll always remain, subservient to him, as in Advaita. But Advaita, very clearly, Shankara's Advaita, because there are so many nuances of Advaita, and somewhere along in one of the talks, I could see that they were coming so close to the Veda philosophy also, especially the Achintya Veda, when somebody talked about the Shakti. I forgot who talked about the Shakti, especially in Saiva Siddhanta. That brings us closer to the Veda concept of Chaitanya and Jiva Goswami. So we have, all these colors, but Tamil Advaita has a flavor of its own, and they have interpreted the same Advaitic philosophy in their various texts, in their various commentaries, in the various treatises. And I'm happy that we could have a session at last to start, on what we have at our own, in our own house. Thank you very much. Now, we will be having tea and snacks served here. So all of us can remain here. We will be going on to the next session shortly. Thank you very much for your patience.
This is the 50th year of Sri Jnana Advaita Peetham. So Swamiji wanted me to announce that from now till September, for the next 6 months, we will have 2 talks on Advaita every month. So we'll plan for it and announce it as the months proceed. Thank you very much. Pranams to Sri Sadguru, pranams to Swami.